Okay, so a little while ago, I made a list of parallels I hunt for in eBay lots and in boxes at card shows, and these were all from 1996 to 2013. And at the end of that segment, I teased a part 2 if people were interested, and the response to that was pretty positive. Now, even though I had a handful in mind already, I had to get some help for this one, primarily from my player collecting friends. As expected, they had a lot of great suggestions, and I was pretty happy with the way this turned out. Okay, so without further ado, here they are in chronological order. The first parallel I want to talk about today is 2015-2016 Panini Complete Gold. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Panini Complete, you're not alone. It wasn't a popular product. There weren't many real hits. The cardstock was really thin and flimsy, not quite as thin as some of the sticker sets that are out there, but it doesn't feel like your standard 35-point stock either. But the whole point of the product was to make a large, affordable set with a few inserts, parallels, and chase cards along the way. The first release featured a 330-card checklist with 2 parallels, silver and gold. Silvers were 1 per pack, golds were 1 per box. And while they aren't all that valuable, for some players they can be pretty tricky to find. I feel like I find them at shows a lot. I don't always buy them, depends on the price point. But earlier this year, for example, I grabbed a Paul George on ComC for like $1.50, and I was pretty happy about that because I knew this was a really tough card to hit. I think that price is fair. It's just like I said, it's a really tough card to find. And before I move on to the next card on the list, it's worth noting that the next year of Panini Complete, 2016, also had gold parallels and an added no back parallel, which some sites call a blank back parallel, and that's probably a more appropriate title. They remind me a lot of the Hoops red backs in the sense of, if you see a big clump of Hoops base or Panini Complete base, just flip them over and kind of look at the backs real quick. You're not going to get rich off of them, but they make for a fun chase, and they might be something to look out for in your searches as well. All right, number 2 is 2015-2016 Panini Excalibur Knights Templar, and I have been buying some of these for my team now that I know about this parallel. It's been a lot of fun looking for these. And the backstory here is, in 2014, Panini released a really cool medieval-themed product called Excalibur, which was a Target exclusive at the time, and it's another one of those products that I opened a little of, maybe a blaster or a couple hangers, but in retrospect, I think I took it for granted. Anyway, the base set had different tiers of parallels, including an unnumbered parallel called Knights Templar. It featured the same design as the base card, except the front of the card was mostly silver foil. Now, for 2014, I found these are pretty easy to find, online and anywhere else. Fast forward to 2015, and that's not the case at all. And I've looked high and low to see how exactly that parallel was inserted. None of the websites I normally use for research have any definitive info. I mentioned the first year was Target only, but I know they added hobby boxes for 2015. I don't know if this parallel made it in there or not. Regardless, if you're digging through a value box and you come across an Excalibur card that looks like the base design, but it's got foil covering the majority of the front, flip it over, check the back for that 2015-2016 Excalibur label, and just know that that might be one that's worth picking up. Okay, number 3 is a 2016-2017 Panini Grand Reserve Vintage Parallel. And you might notice a trend with this list. A lot of these are going to be products that were introduced and only around for a few years, if that. And Panini seemingly retired them before they were run into the ground. Anyway, getting back on track, in 2016, Panini made a product called Grand Reserve. A product that I will never bash, by the way, because it gave us a Pacers-only Hickory-themed memorabilia set. Anyway, the base set for this product was pretty small, only 100 cards. Now, technically cards 101 through 140 are part of the base set as well, but they're all rookie relic autos numbered to 99, and they have a handful of parallels. The first 100 cards of the set, though, which are made up of mostly veterans, have one parallel called Vintage, and it's pretty easy to differentiate from the base card. The base cards have a cropped picture of the player with a white background and color border. It almost looks like a sort of precursor to the blank slate insert that would come out of Court Kings just a year later, but with that added border. The Vintage parallel, on the other hand, has a cropped picture of the player, a beige background, and a color border. So you just have to look at the majority of the card and figure out if it's white or if it's beige. And if you're familiar with the base set, this difference is not subtle at all. I know some parallels over the years have been just a tad darker. To me, I would say this one is not even off-white, it's beige. And one more thing, if you're rummaging through a box and one of these is in there, it's likely to stick out somewhat because it is a thicker stock than most products. If I had to put a number on it, I'd guess it was about 55 point. All right, this next one is one you're probably not likely to find, but it's one I think you should look out for, and that's the 2016-2017 Panini Aficionado Opening Night Preview. And prior to 2009, Panini didn't have a lot of actual basketball lineage, so they either had to acquire brands like Hoops or lean into the intellectual property they owned from other sports. Such was the case with Aficionado, which was based on a short-lived Pinnacle set from 1996, a baseball set. And the base cards in this set were horizontal with a headshot on one side of the card and an action shot on the other. And one of the more sought-after cards from that 1996 product was a 100-card promo set called First Pitch Preview. Well, fast forward to 2016, which by the way was the 20th anniversary of that set, and Aficionado Basketball has a very similar looking base set, with the headshot on one side and the action shot on the other. And then the first 100 cards have a parallel called Opening Night Preview. And these are pretty easy to differentiate from the base versions once you know about them. First off, the Opening Night version uses different pictures. Now, that would be the hardest way to tell the difference between the two because it would require knowing what the pictures for every player looked like on every base card. But really, that's not necessary because the headshot on the Opening Night uses this bluish foil, and then going down the right side of the card, the same foil is used for the words Opening Night in all capital letters. Now, I've never found one of these at a show, but the main reason is I didn't know to look for them. So at least I don't know that I've found one at a show. There might be GoPro video of me on YouTube just flying past one. I hope not. But this is one of the parallels that my player collecting friends pointed out to me because some of them had trouble tracking these down. And like I said, it makes me wonder how many I probably missed in boxes. There's also another one, another parallel from this set called Tip Off that I can't get much info on either. For all I know, it might be just as rare, if not more. Needless to say, I hope to be able to spot them from here on out. Okay, number 5 is probably the easiest card to find from this list, but one that I think is worth discussing once again, and that's 2016-2017 Donrus Optic Checkerboard. So Donrus Optic made its debut as a standalone basketball product back in 2016, and I feel like it filled a significant void in Panini's product run because even though they had already been producing chromium sets for several years, none of them matched up to a plain stock set like we used to get with Topps and Topps Chrome. I think we could probably say that Panini borrowed some other aspects from the Topps Chrome era for this new set as well, because the 101 gold vinyl parallels look a lot closer to the old Superfractors than the black 101s in Prism. They also use the old X-Fractor pattern for a retail-only parallel called Checkerboard, and that's the one that I want to focus on today. Early on, these checkerboard parallels could only be found in fat packs, in their own separate 3-card pack. And I know Optic did that later on with other parallels like Blue Velocity. We've seen it in Prism with the red, white, and blues. But you've got to understand, even though they came in their own separate pack and it wasn't, a crazy chase to get them, these checkerboards are not like the red, white, and blues and some of those other ones because 2016 Optic was not printed anywhere near the same quantity as any of the other chromium products from 2018 on, and you could probably lump 2017 in there too. With that being said, we don't know an exact print run on these. I've read several places where people have guessed anywhere between 25 and 50 for each player. From what I've seen, I think 25 is a bit low. As one of my friends stated, they were short printed, but not that short printed. There were enough of them that every player collector could get one. Now, if you're hunting these to flip for something else down the road, you probably want to stick with the bigger names. There are a lot of these for sale on the secondary market, but I will still grab some of the lower level players at a show if the price is right. And before I move on, I know some of you are probably going to ask, why I didn't include the super tough 2016 Optic preview cards on this list, which were inserted in hobby boxes of regular Donrus. Well, the reason is just that. They were inserts, technically. And even if they were considered parallels, the odds of finding them are astronomical, so I left them off. Speaking of cards that are tough to find, number 6 is another one you probably won't find in a box at a show. It is the 2017-2018 Panini Essentials Platinum Parallel. And maybe you've seen Essentials in some of the Chronicles products in recent years, but in 2017 it was produced as a standalone release. The base set was on holographic stock and had 4 parallels: gold, which was unnumbered; silver, which was out of 99; platinum, which was unnumbered; and purple, which was 101. Kind of like some of the old Fleer stuff in the late 90s. This is just a guess, but that seems intentional to me, especially with the focus that this product put on inserts. And, well, I'd love to see you find a purple 101 in a value box. That's not the parallel I've got on my list today. I want to talk instead about the unnumbered platinum parallel. And I'll do my best to describe them, but these look really good in hand. They have a real nice shine to them. Just like the base card, it's got the close-up shot on one side and zoomed out action shot on the other. The difference is in the color on the background of the foil, which has a light bluish tint to it. There are several guys I know of that have pursued this set pretty hard. I've seen that on social media. We don't have any confirmed print runs. I've seen the number 10 thrown around a lot, but a couple people I've talked to that hunt for them seem to think there's more than that. So that number is probably not quite accurate. Either way, they're pretty rare. They're pretty tough to come by. And on top of that, they're just great looking cards. All right, number 6 is another tough one, and one I think will blend in a lot more than some of the other parallels I've discussed. And that is 2017-2018 Panini Select Courtside Silver Prism. And once upon a time, seems like so long ago now, but prior to 2020, Select was a hobby-only release. And I'm putting First Off the Line under that hobby umbrella as well, even though technically it's probably not. But anyway, like every other Select release since 2014, the 2017 base set was comprised of 3 different subsets. You have Concourse, which was the most common; Premier, which was 2 cards per pack; and then Courtside, which was 2 cards per box. So, seeing as I'm highlighting the parallel of the rarest subset in the base set, you can probably see where this is going. We don't have to have the exact numbers to know that the Courtside Silvers are really hard to come by. Talk to player collectors. Look at listings on ComC. Try to find these for guys on your favorite teams. It's not easy. All the while, visually, these have nothing about them that really sets them apart. Sure, the silver prism finish looks nice, but it blends in with practically every other shiny card from the last 5 to 6 years. So, while these are rare, I imagine there are some out there that are hiding in plain sight, in lots, in boxes at shows, amongst all the other shiny junk wax that came after all of these in the pandemic era. Okay, number 7 is one that I'm a lot more familiar with. It's one that I've collected some over the last handful of years. It was in both iterations of the standalone Panini Status products in 2017 and 2018, and that is the Status Pursuit Parallel. And this one's pretty easy to spot. It looks just like the base card, except it has a die-cut pattern on the left and right edges. I've seen people label both years as a case hit. Just because something's short printed doesn't always give us definitive proof that it's a case hit. But no matter what you want to call it, it's just really tough to come by. Now, I would say it probably is for 2017. Those have always been a lot harder for me to come by. It could be true for 2018 as well, but I have seen some cases where there are 2 or 3 of them pulled. And I was lucky enough to pull a LeBron in 2018 from my very first pack, and truth be told, I probably should have stopped there. I have found 3 or 4 of these 2018 Pursuit parallels in value boxes at shows. I have yet to find a 2017 in a box, although I have purchased some elsewhere, but I'm pretty sure they're out there. So who knows, maybe one of you guys will unearth one at your next show. All right, you probably noticed by now that this list is made up of mostly pre-2018 parallels. And 2018, for me, was the point where things started to get a little crazy. We probably had more parallels than ever, and less creativity than ever, simultaneously. And a lot of the parallels from this era on were either some sort of animal print, or disco, or swirl, or wave, or neon. Like, is anyone really asking for these red, yellow, and green combos? They're hideous. Some of them are pretty tough to find, but they're not really all that desirable or meaningful at the same time. And such is the case with number 9 on the list. It's actually 2 different parallels that I've lumped together, both from 2019 Hoops Premium. As much as I've joked about Hoops in the past, I thought Hoops Premium was a really nice looking product. It just went way overboard with parallels, and it got printed to the moon in the process. So I don't think a lot of people will ever really respect it. Nonetheless, out of the 45 total parallels in the product, at least that's what Trading Card Database said, 45 parallels, there are 2 that have given my player collecting friends fits. I'm not counting the 101s. There are 2 parallels that have given them fits. The first of which is the Teal Wave parallel. And from what I've read, those are exclusive to mega boxes. And the second is the Red Wave parallel, which supposedly was only found in blasters. Now, at the time I put this list together, there were 8 total Teal Waves per sale on ComC and 0 Red Waves, which is pretty incredible considering this is a 300 card set and there was just so much of this product out there. I mean, you couldn't go to a show and escape this stuff. And honestly, whenever I see row boxes full of Hoops Premium at shows, I pass right by them. It feels like this stuff's never going to go away. But now that I know about these 2 parallels, I figure I should give those boxes a little attention. I can't say I'm necessarily excited about sifting through thousands of Hoop Premium cards, but at the same time, there's a part of me that loves a good chase. So at least now I know. Okay, last but not least, number 10 is 2021-22 Panini Chronicles Pink of both the Prism Update and the Optic Traded, which is still part of that Chronicles base set. It's all kind of confusing. This one is fresh on my mind because it's from the season Tyrese Halliburton got traded, and he's got 2 different cards in the run. And, honestly, it probably shouldn't even be on this list since I'm only focusing on, there's 15 cards total in that Update and Optic section, but you know what, I'm going to mention it anyway, because for whatever reason, the pink parallels of Prism Update and Optic Traded portions of the base set just aren't showing up very much. They're not numbered, they're probably not in high demand, but they're not easy to find. So if you have it in you to go through all those Hoops Premium cards, I know you probably have the stamina to flip through the Chronicles stuff too. If you find one of these pink cards in there, it might even be worth your time. All right. And that's all I have for my list of parallels today. I hope you found it was worth your time. I ended up putting a lot more time into this than I'd planned on, went down a lot of rabbit holes, but that's okay. I had a lot of fun. I added a lot of knowledge kind of to my brain for the next time I go to a show, and I added a lot of cards to my want list in the process. And coming into this, I felt like I had a decent grasp on the Panini era, but this showed that, maybe I've had tunnel vision towards patch cards this whole time. There's a lot of other good stuff out there too, and I need to keep branching out. I wouldn't have realized this had I not reached out to some of my player collecting friends and allowed them to share some of their expertise with me.